Life had never been easy for Amelia Carter. Raised in a small town by a single mother, she had learned the value of hard work at an early age. Despite juggling multiple jobs to fund her law school dreams, she still found herself struggling to make ends meet. Every day, she raced through the city on her old scooter, delivering food just to survive. What no one knew was that behind her simple uniform was a brilliant mind, one that could outsmart even the most powerful businessmen. Welcome back to another heart-stopping story. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a tale that will leave you speechless. That night, the rain poured relentlessly as Amelia rushed into Westwood Enterprises, the city's most prestigious business empire. Inside his lavish corner office, billionaire Ethan Westwood sat reviewing a high-stakes contract worth millions. When Amelia entered, drenched from the rain, he barely acknowledged her. To him, she was just another struggling worker, insignificant and unworthy of his time. As she placed the takeout bag on his desk, her sharp eyes accidentally landed on a contract beside him. A single line caught her attention, a loophole so severe it could cost him everything. She hesitated, debating whether to speak. Then she took a deep breath. "Excuse me, sir, but this clause here, it is a trap. If you sign it, your company could lose millions in a lawsuit." Ethan glanced up, stunned by her audacity. A delivery girl giving him legal advice? His lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, really? And what makes you think you know more than my top lawyers?" Amelia met his gaze with unshaken confidence. "Because I study law, and your lawyers missed a crucial detail." For the first time in his life, someone had dared to challenge him, and he was not prepared for what was coming next. Silence hung in the air as Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying Amelia with a mixture of amusement and intrigue. No one ever questioned him, especially not someone society deemed unimportant. He folded his arms, smirking. "You study law?" His voice carried a mocking edge. "Let me guess, some online crash course?" Amelia did not flinch. "Number Harvard." The room seemed to shrink at her words. Ethan's smirk faltered, just for a second. The idea that a mere delivery girl had once walked the halls of the most prestigious law school in the country unsettled him. But instead of showing it, he chuckled, dismissing her with a wave. "If you are so brilliant, why are you delivering food instead of sitting in a courtroom?" Amelia tightened her grip on the empty delivery bag. She did not owe him an explanation, but something inside her refused to back down. "Because life does not hand everyone the same advantages, Mr. Westwood. Some of us have to fight for every step forward." Ethan arched a brow. "And you believe you just saved me from financial disaster?" "Humor me. What did my top-tier legal team miss?" Amelia exhaled, stepping closer. She pointed to a specific clause on the contract. "This section states that in case of a dispute, arbitration will take place under the laws of Syrian jurisdiction instead of U.S. federal law. Your company operates here, but if you sign this, any legal issue will be settled in a country where you have zero control. If your partners decide to turn against you, you could lose millions, maybe even the company itself." Ethan's jaw clenched. He had spent weeks reviewing this deal with his lawyers, yet none of them had spotted what this woman had seen in mere seconds. He snatched the contract, scanning the section she had pointed out. His pulse quickened. She was right. For the first time in years, Ethan Westwood felt outmaneuvered by someone he had dismissed without a second thought. He looked up, his blue eyes locking onto Amelia's. "What is your name?" "Amelia Carter." He nodded slowly, before pressing the intercom button on his desk. "Call my legal team, now." Amelia turned to leave, but Ethan's voice stopped her. "Wait." She turned back, meeting his intense gaze. "You are clearly wasting your potential. Come work for me." Amelia blinked, shocked. The richest, most powerful man in the city had just offered her a job. But nothing in life came without a price, and she knew better than to trust a man like Ethan Westwood. She glanced at him one last time before walking away. "Not interested." Ethan watched her leave, his smirk returning. He was not used to being turned down, and he was not about to let this legal genius slip through his fingers. This was not the last he would see of Amelia Carter. Not even close. Ethan Westwood was not a man who accepted rejection. Amelia Carter had not just challenged him. She had walked away without a second thought. That alone made her unforgettable. But more than that, she had done something no one in his company had managed to do. She had outsmarted him. That night, as he sat in his penthouse, sipping a glass of scotch, he could not shake her from his mind. He had built an empire by surrounding himself with the best, yet his entire legal team had failed him. And then a delivery girl had spotted a flaw that could have destroyed everything. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Westwood Enterprises with a decision already made. He was going to find her. Meanwhile, Amelia had no idea she had left a lasting impression on one of the most powerful men in the country. She had long since learned that the rich only saw people like her as disposable. No matter how brilliant she was, the world had made it clear. She would always be just another nameless face in the crowd. But fate had other plans. As she finished another shift at the law library, buried under textbooks and paperwork, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Amelia Carter? Her stomach tightened at the sound of his voice. Ethan Westwood. How did you get my number? She asked sharply. Ethan chuckled on the other end. When I want something, I get it. And right now, I want you to come work for me. Amelia rolled her eyes. I already said no. Yes? And that was a mistake. His voice was calm, confident. You have talent, Amelia. Talent that should not be wasted delivering food or drowning in student debt. You spotted $1 million mistake in seconds. Imagine what you could do with the right resources. She hated that his words made sense. She needed a real opportunity. She needed a chance. But working for someone like Ethan Westwood, a man who wielded power like a weapon, it felt dangerous. Thank you, but I am not interested in being someone's corporate puppet, she said firmly. Ethan let out a low laugh. You think I want a puppet? No, Amelia, I want a shark. There was a pause before he added, I will pay off your entire law school debt if you prove you are worth it. Her breath caught. That debt had been a chain around her neck for years. The weight of her struggles, her sacrifices, it all flashed before her eyes. This could change her life. But nothing in life came for free. 1 week, she said finally. I will work for you for 1 week. No contracts, no obligations. If I decide to walk away, you let me. Ethan smirked on the other end of the line. Deal. What neither of them knew was that this one decision would change their lives forever. Ethan Westwood always got what he wanted, but Amelia Carter was unlike anyone he had ever dealt with. She had not been impressed by his wealth, nor had she been intimidated by his power. That intrigued him. And now, with her 1-week trial beginning, he was determined to prove that she belonged in his world, whether she wanted to or not. The next morning, Amelia stepped into Westwood Enterprises, dressed in a sleek yet modest outfit she had borrowed from a friend. The grandeur of the towering glass walls and the hushed conversations of high-powered executives reminded her that she was an outsider here. She had fought for everything in her life, but this world? This was a battlefield she had never stepped onto before. As she reached the top floor, Ethan was waiting for her in his immaculate office, watching her with unreadable eyes. He looked sharp in a tailored navy suit, exuding power and control. You are late, he remarked casually. Amelia crossed her arms. It is 8:58. You said to be here by 9. Ethan smirked. And I prefer my people to be ahead of schedule. She met his gaze without backing down. Then you should have said be here by 8:50. Precision matters, Mr. Westwood. For a second, silence stretched between them before something unexpected happened. Ethan let out a low chuckle. She was quick. He liked that. All right, Amelia, let us see if you are as sharp as I think you are, he said, sliding a thick file across the table. This is a pending lawsuit against my company. My lawyers have been working on it for months. Find something they missed. Amelia did not hesitate. She took a seat, flipped open the file, and began reading. The room faded around her as she scanned the legal jargon, dissecting every word with laser focus. Minutes ticked by, and Ethan watched her, intrigued by the way her brows furrowed in deep concentration. Then, she found it. She lifted her gaze, tapping a specific clause. This case could be dismissed immediately if you countersue for breach of contract. The plaintiff signed a non-compete agreement when he left your company, yet he started a rival firm within 6 months. That violates his exit terms, making his lawsuit against you invalid. Ethan raised an eyebrow. He had hired the best legal team money could buy, yet they had not caught that? Unbelievable. He leaned back, watching her with newfound admiration. Impressive. Amelia shrugged, closing the file. It was obvious. Ethan smiled, something rare flashing in his eyes. Not to my lawyers, it was not. For the first time, Amelia felt a flicker of satisfaction. Maybe, just maybe, she belonged here more than she thought. But she did not realize one thing yet. While she was proving herself in the corporate world, she was also unknowingly working her way into Ethan's guarded heart. And that was something neither of them was prepared for. Ethan had seen ambition before. He had hired some of the most ruthless legal minds in the country, men and women who would do anything for power. But Amelia Carter was different. She was sharp, confident, and brilliant. But she did not chase power. She carried herself with a quiet strength, never seeking validation, never trying to impress. And that was what impressed him the most. By the end of the day, Amelia had torn through 4 major contracts, exposing flaws that his legal team had overlooked. Ethan had spent millions on attorneys, yet this woman, who had been delivering food days ago, was outperforming them all. "You are wasted anywhere else," Ethan said as she gathered her things. "Stay. I will double your salary." Amelia glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "It was never about the money, Mr. Westwood. I said 1 week. I will keep my word." Something about the way she said it made Ethan pause. He was not used to hearing no. But there was something captivating about Amelia, something that made him want to keep pushing her boundaries. Just then, the office door burst open, and a striking blonde woman strode in, heels clicking against the floor. Madison Clark, Ethan's on-and-off socialite girlfriend. Tall, elegant, and effortlessly glamorous, she was exactly the type of woman everyone expected by Ethan's side. "Ethan, darling," Madison purred, her eyes flicking briefly to Amelia before returning to him. "I have been trying to reach you all day. We have a gala tonight. Are you ready?" Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He had forgotten about the event, but he was not about to be dragged into a conversation about it now. "I am busy," he said curtly. Madison finally turned to Amelia, giving her a slow, assessing glance. "And you are?" Before Amelia could answer, Ethan spoke. "She is my new legal consultant." His voice carried a protective edge Amelia had not heard before. Madison let out a soft laugh. "A consultant. Interesting." Her tone was sweet, but there was a sharpness behind her smile. "Ethan, darling, we need to talk. Alone." Ethan exhaled. He knew what this was. Madison did not like competition. And even though Amelia was nothing like the women Madison normally saw as threats, something about her presence was clearly unsettling her. Amelia, however, had no interest in the tension between them. She gathered her bag and turned toward Ethan. "I will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, Mr. Westwood." Ethan watched her walk out, something unfamiliar tightening in his chest. Madison stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Who is she to you, Ethan?" He smirked slightly, but his eyes lingered on the door where Amelia had just left. "That," he said smoothly, "is something I am still figuring out." And for the first time in years, Ethan Westwood found himself intrigued by a woman not because of her beauty, but because she was the first person who had ever challenged him, and walked away without looking back. But the game had only just begun. Amelia had no time for distractions. She had agreed to 1 week, just 1 week, and then she would walk away. That was the plan. No matter how intoxicating the world of power and prestige was, she knew it was not where she belonged. But Ethan Westwood? He was making it difficult. The next morning, she arrived at the office to find a new workspace set up right next to his. A sleek desk, a high-end laptop, and a personalized nameplate that read, Amelia Carter, legal consultant. She frowned. This was not part of the deal. Stepping into his office, she found him reviewing documents, looking as composed as ever. "You are moving too fast," she stated. Ethan looked up, amused. "I do everything fast, Amelia. It is how I built an empire." She crossed her arms. "I agreed to 1 week, not an office with my name on it." He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Call it optimism." She exhaled sharply, refusing to let his confidence shake her. "I do not plan to stay." Ethan stood, walking toward her, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. "Then why did you come back today?" Amelia hated that he had a point. She could have left, ignored his calls, and continued her life as if Westwood Enterprises had never happened. But she had come back. "Because I gave my word," she said simply. Ethan studied her for a moment before nodding. "Then let us get to work." The morning was a whirlwind of high-stakes meetings, contract reviews, and heated negotiations. Amelia thrived in the intensity, proving herself over and over. She was not just good, she was exceptional. By noon, word had spread through the company. Employees whispered about the mysterious woman Ethan had brought in. Who was she? Why was he giving her so much attention? But Amelia ignored the rumors. She was here to work, nothing more. At least that was what she told herself. That afternoon, as she was reviewing another file, Ethan placed a set of gala invitations on her desk. "What is this?" she asked. "An invitation," he said smoothly. "Tonight. I need you there." She frowned. "I'm not attending some high society event, Ethan." "You are my consultant," he said, his voice calm but firm. "And this is a corporate event. Deals are made at these functions. It is not just about business, it is about power. You need to see how this world operates." She hesitated. The thought of standing in a room full of billionaires and socialites made her uncomfortable. But deep down, she knew he was right. If she wanted to truly understand the game, she had to step into the arena. "Fine," she said. "But do not expect me to play along with your world's pretenses." Ethan smirked. "Oh, Amelia. You do not have to play along. You just have to win." What neither of them realized was that this night would change everything. Not just for business, but for their hearts. The evening arrived faster than Amelia expected. She stood in front of her small mirror, staring at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. The sleek black gown Ethan's assistant had sent fit her like a second skin. Elegant, yet understated. Her normally tied-up hair cascaded in soft waves, and the touch of makeup enhanced her striking features. For the first time, she looked like she belonged in Ethan Westwood's world. But did she? A sleek black limousine waited outside, and the moment she stepped in, she felt Ethan's gaze sweep over her. He was dressed in a sharp black tuxedo, his presence commanding as always. But tonight, there was something different about the way he looked at her. "You clean up well," he said, his voice lower than usual. Amelia arched a brow. "I did not realize this was a test." Ethan smirked, pouring them both a glass of champagne. "It is always a test, Amelia. In my world, appearances are power." She took the glass, but did not drink. "Good thing I am not trying to impress anyone." Ethan chuckled, swirling the liquid in his glass. "You are wrong about that. Every person in that room will be watching you tonight. Judging, measuring, trying to figure out why I brought you." She met his gaze. "And why did you?" For a moment, Ethan did not answer. He simply looked at her, something unreadable flickering in his expression. Then, as if flipping a switch, he smirked. "Because I like shaking things up." The car rolled to a stop outside the grand ballroom, where cameras flashed and murmurs filled the air. Amelia inhaled deeply. This was it. Ethan stepped out first, adjusting his cufflinks with effortless confidence. Then he turned and offered his hand to her. "Shall we?" She hesitated for only a second before taking it. The warmth of his touch sent a strange jolt through her, but she ignored it. This was just business. As they entered, heads turned, whispers spread. Who was she? Madison Clark was among the first to notice, her perfectly painted lips curving into a sharp smile as she glided toward them. "Ethan," she purred, her eyes flicking to Amelia. "And you must be his new assistant?" Amelia met her gaze without flinching. "Legal consultant." Madison's smile did not waver, but there was something calculating in her eyes. "How fascinating. Ethan rarely brings business associates to these events." She turned to him, resting a delicate hand on his arm. "Shall we dance?" Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He was about to decline when Amelia spoke first. "You should go," she said smoothly. "I am sure Miss Clark has been waiting all night." Ethan's eyes flickered with something she could not quite name, but before he could respond, Madison was already pulling him toward the dance floor. Amelia exhaled, turning toward the bar. She had no reason to feel anything about this. This was not personal. But when she glanced back at Ethan, she found him looking at her, not Madison. And that was when Amelia realized something unsettling. She was not just shaking up Ethan Westwood's world, he was shaking up hers. Amelia leaned against the bar, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her untouched champagne glass. The room was a sea of glittering gowns and sharp tuxedos, but all she could focus on was Ethan. He moved with practiced ease, leading Madison across the dance floor, his expression unreadable. But his eyes, they had given him away. Even as he danced with Madison, his gaze had drifted back to her. "You do not seem like the type to enjoy these events," a voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find a man standing beside her, dressed in a dark blue suit with an air of effortless charm. His sharp hazel eyes studied her with curiosity. "And you do?" she countered, arching a brow. He chuckled. "Not in the slightest. But these events are not about enjoyment. They are about power plays. People pretending they are in control when they are just waiting for someone to make a mistake." Amelia smirked. "You make it sound like a game." "It is," he said, extending a hand. "Julian Carter, CEO of Carter Holdings." She hesitated before shaking his hand. "Amelia." Julian's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Ah, the infamous mystery woman. You have quite a reputation already. Ethan Westwood does not bring just anyone into his world." She tensed slightly. "I am here for work, nothing else." "Interesting," Julian mused. "Then tell me, why does he keep looking at you like that?" Amelia's breath caught. She glanced at Ethan just as he turned away from Madison, his gaze locked on hers. There it was again, that intensity. Before she could respond, Julian leaned in slightly. "Care for a dance? Or would that cause too much of a scene?" Amelia hesitated. This was dangerous territory. But something inside her wanted to push back, to remind Ethan that he was not the only one who could shake things up. She placed her glass down. "Let us dance." As Julian led her onto the floor, the whispers around them grew louder. Amelia did not care. Let them talk. Ethan, however, had stopped moving altogether. Madison followed his gaze and let out a soft, knowing laugh. "You are losing control, Ethan," she whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw. "You do not know what you are talking about." Madison tilted her head. "Do I not? Then why do you look like you are about to break something?" Ethan said nothing. His grip on his drink tightened as he watched Julian spin Amelia with effortless ease. She was smiling. And that was when it hit him. He had underestimated her in more ways than one. And now, he was the one who felt like he was playing catch-up. Ethan was not the type to lose control. He had spent his entire life mastering the art of strategy, keeping emotions locked behind an impenetrable wall. But watching Amelia in Julian Carter's arms, that was testing every ounce of his restraint. He had invited her here to observe, to learn how power shifted in a room like this. Not to become the center of attention. Not to let another man steal the moment that belonged to them. Madison watched him with amusement. "If you wanted her to stay by your side, you should have asked her yourself." Ethan exhaled sharply, setting his glass down with more force than necessary. "I do not need to ask for anything." "Then why are you standing here instead of cutting in?" Madison smirked. Admit it, Ethan. You did not expect her to handle this world so well. You thought she would falter, but instead, she is thriving. Ethan said nothing because he knew Madison was right. Amelia was not just surviving in his world. She was commanding it. And Julian Carter had noticed. Ethan's patience snapped when he saw Julian lean in, whispering something in Amelia's ear that made her laugh. The sound of it sent something sharp through his chest. That was it. He strode toward them with purpose, cutting through the crowd effortlessly. As Julian twirled Amelia one last time, Ethan caught her hand mid-spin, pulling her toward him. Julian raised a brow, stepping back slightly. Something wrong, Westwood? Ethan's grip on Amelia's waist tightened slightly as he looked Julian dead in the eye. I believe you have had your turn. Amelia's breath hitched. There was something different about Ethan now. His usual control was cracking. Julian smirked but did not push. Fair enough, he said, stepping away. Enjoy your dance. Ethan wasted no time, pulling Amelia closer as the music shifted to something slower. What do you think you are doing? She whispered, her heart pounding. You tell me, Ethan murmured, his voice low. You walked into my world like you did not belong, and now you have every man in this room wanting a piece of you, including me. Her breath caught at his honesty. Ethan. I underestimated you, Amelia, and I hate being wrong. His fingers brushed against the bare skin of her back, sending a shiver through her. But I will not make that mistake again. Amelia felt trapped, not because she wanted to escape, but because a part of her wanted to stay. But before she could respond, someone approached them, clearing their throat. Ethan, a voice said, there is something you need to see. A man handed him a tablet, and as Ethan's gaze dropped to the screen, his entire expression darkened. Amelia leaned in slightly. What is it? Ethan looked up, his jaw tight. Someone is trying to take my company from me. And just like that, the moment between them shattered. The night was no longer about games. It was about war. The warmth of Ethan's touch vanished as his focus shifted entirely to the tablet in his hands. His face, which had just held the intensity of an unspoken confession, turned to pure steel. Someone was trying to take his company. Amelia's mind worked fast. Who sent this? She asked, peering at the screen. A series of financial documents, contracts, and boardroom memos flashed before her eyes. A clear attempt at corporate betrayal. Ethan's grip on the device tightened. A hostile takeover, he muttered. Someone from the inside is trying to push me out. This information should not even exist, unless someone leaked it. Madison, who had been lingering nearby, smirked. Looks like you have bigger problems than a dance, Ethan. But Amelia was not listening to her. Her legal mind had already begun dissecting the situation, piecing together the gaps, the timing, the precision, the motive. She looked up at Ethan, her heart pounding. Ethan, whoever is behind this, they made a mistake. Ethan finally met her gaze. What do you mean? She exhaled, her mind racing. I need a closer look at those documents, but based on what I just saw, they used a loophole in contract law. One that only works if you do not have the right counteraction in place. Her eyes darkened. And I know exactly how to shut them down. For the first time that night, Ethan saw not just the woman who had challenged him, but the legal genius he had so severely underestimated. Are you certain? He asked, his voice low. Amelia lifted her chin. Give me 30 minutes, and I will make sure no one ever tries this again. Ethan held her gaze, and then, without another word, he grabbed her hand and led her out of the ballroom. The moment they stepped into his private office upstairs, Amelia got to work. She sifted through documents, scanned contracts, and traced the betrayal back to its source. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she drafted a countermeasure that would not just block the takeover, it would expose the people behind it. Ethan watched in silence, leaning against his desk. He had always believed that power came from control, from predicting every move before it happened. But Amelia was proving him wrong. She was not just brilliant, she was ruthless in her precision, tearing apart the legal trap set against him with cold, calculated efficiency. After what felt like an eternity, Amelia finally leaned back. "It is done," she said. "They will never see this coming." Ethan studied her for a long moment, then stepped closer. "You just saved my company." Amelia met his gaze, her pulse quickening. "And you saved me from a life I never wanted to settle for. I guess that makes us even." Ethan let out a slow breath, his hand reaching up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "No, Amelia. It does not." Before she could ask what he meant, he closed the space between them and kissed her. It was not a kiss of gratitude, not a kiss of power. It was something deeper, something neither of them had planned for. And yet, it felt inevitable. When they finally broke apart, Amelia exhaled shakily. "Ethan." His eyes held a fire she had never seen before. "This started as a game, Amelia. But tell me, does it still feel like one?" She swallowed hard. "No," she admitted. "It does not." Ethan smirked. "Good, because I do not intend to lose." As the city lights glowed behind them, Amelia realized something terrifying. Neither did she.